When we talk about gender justice, our conversations often center on women's safety, their empowerment, and equality, as it should. But sometimes we forget about the other side of the coin. And can true gender equality actually exist if we don't see the other side of the story? So that's what we'll be talking about today because we have International Men's Day coming up and we are starting an important and often uncomfortable conversation. And we're all three women discussing rights for men. Um, about the silent struggles, unspoken expectations, and overlooked legal realities that shape their lives, from suicide rates to false accusations, from custody battles, mental health, things often we don't relate to men. So today we are asking the big questions. Is gender equality incomplete without men? Do our laws reflect fairness for all? Or have we created imbalances in the pursuit of justice? And what a truly gender equality and gender neutral system would look like in India. So, what I'll do is I'll ask you all questions and to keep the conversation going, and of course, we'll discuss them basis our topic. When we talk about gender justice, we often focus on women's safety and empowerment. Is gender equality incomplete without addressing the men's rights?
Yes, of course. अगर हम बात करते हैं जेंडर इक्वालिटी की तो मीन्स ऑफ कोर्स मेंस के राइट भी उसमें कंसीडर करे जाने चाहिए मीन्स अगर कोई मेन या वेमेन की बात नहीं होती है अगर कोई पर्सन है जो परेशान है उसका मेंटल इशू फेस कर रहा है अपनी लाइफ में और अगर हम उसकी बात नहीं कर रहे हैं तो मीन्स जस्टिस हुआ ही कहाँ सिर्फ मेन विमेन ओरिएंटेड ही रह जाएगा ये मैन ओरिएंटेड नहीं रह जाएगा और यहाँ पर बात मैन या वेमेन की नहीं है यहाँ पर हम बात कर रहे हैं कि मीन्स दोनों में इक्वालिटी होनी चाहिए जस्टिस होना चाहिए तो मैन भी उतना ही सफ़र करते हैं मेंटल हेल्थ उनकी भी उतनी ही सफ़र होती है मीन्स जितनी कि वेमेन की
Yeah, I think when we talk about societal issues or issues that we have related to specifically gender inequality, yes, historically we've focused more on women because we've been the gender who's been disproportionately disadvantaged. But I think when we talk about it today, I feel like we tend to forget that a lot of the issues affect both genders. And they may affect them differently, but they affect both. And in the stride of wanting to do more for women, we have kind of forgotten how it affects men and what we need to do so that we're at a position where both the genders are taken into consideration. So yes, I think gender equality is incomplete without addressing men's rights too, or how issues affect them too.
Yeah, because I think still we've long lived in a patriarchal society, and that's why for a very long time, rightly so, we tried to focus on how women should be treated. Yeah. But yeah, in the bargain, when we've tried to create things, we've forgotten the other side of it as well. Because we have this image that a man should be strong and a man should have this thing. And since he's strong, then why should we give him extra help?
Yeah, and I think when we talk about, like you said, living in a patriarchal society, it has disadvantaged both men and women because while there are some expectations put on women on how they should behave in that society, the same goes for men too. They are also expected to be like the breadwinner, they are expected to be, like you said, strong. And that also affects them. There is this unrealistic expectation from them to always be the provider. So I think that patriarchy affects both genders, not just women.
Okay. So, what are some real, tangible areas where men in India face legal or social discrimination that are often ignored? What do you think?
I think mental health is something that is often ignored in the sense that I feel like men, or especially in India, men haven't been taught to speak about their emotions. They haven't been taught to say how they feel, or there is this perception that a man always has to be strong and they cannot appear weak. And in that, I think a lot of their issues go unnoticed. which has
lots of men facing loneliness and their mental health affect more on.
Yeah, and I think there is, while when we also talk about laws, a lot of laws in our country are not gender neutral. They specify that it only can happen to a woman. Even if we talk about like sexual harassment laws at the workplace or anywhere else, it only says
actually is
yeah for women exactly. Yeah, but that's ignoring the fact that even men go through sexual harassment, sexual assault, and they can be very much victims of these crimes. But we've kind of just ignored that aspect. And I think it also creates a stigma where even if men are going through these crimes, they are ashamed or they're not forthcoming with something that has happened to them of such nature. Because there is, I think, still a very big stigma for both genders, but I think for men even more.
Yeah. So, like you mentioned rightly, a lot of laws are also not gender neutral. So, one is of course POSH, which is for women in workplace anyway. Even domestic violence cases, they treat the woman as the aggrieved person or the person in distress. They don't treat of the person, but they say that the woman is usually is the person of distress in that situation, whereas it can be anybody. A man can also be in a bad marriage and have domestic violence, but maybe different kind, maybe not physical, maybe something else, or maybe physical, but it's not that's not considered at all. Yeah. So that is also another thing that is not gender neutral at all.
Yeah. And I mean, I would wonder if even if say a man is going through some a sexual harassment at his workplace, it becomes very difficult for him to get the right legal recourse because there isn't a law which directly covers it. I mean, I would imagine he'd have to go through some other means, but like for women, there is an exact recourse and a law that governs it. Yeah,
Do current laws, especially those related to domestic violence, dowry, or sexual harassment, need gender neutral reform, or would that dilute a woman's protection? Because that's often the issue, right? We feel like if we try to make it better for men, uh, maybe it will dilute what we have already tried to create for women. Because, like we were discussing before, since it's been a patriarchal society for a long time, we have tried for a long time to make it better for the woman, where she's staying, what she's doing, who she's marrying. On all there are plenty of rituals that we took into consideration, and then we have made specific laws to protect women. So, do you think if we try to make it equal for men and women, especially in these kind of domestic cases, because that's usually where it comes out the most, right? Do you think it will dilute the laws that we have made for women?
um, I don't necessarily think so. I mean, I feel like here there is a like it comes from a perspective thing. I think where we're looking at these things with a lens of, oh, if I'm doing this for men's right means I have to take something from women's right, whereas I feel like instead of doing that it should be more of, okay, women's rights, or this already exists, this law already exists, how can we make it more inclusive for men also, instead of being like, okay, if we include men also then it's going to take away from women. Like there are a lot of women's cells which protect women, why not add cells or organizations which also do similar for men? So it's like there has to be a society in which both of these can exist together and not take away from one another, is what I think.
So things that protect men the same way as
Yeah, yeah. So it's not a fighting for resources. It's not a, oh, now that men also can be protected under the law, so now there has to be a sharing of resources done. But it can be that we add more things to it, add more resources to it, add more things in that system so that both genders are equally protected or governed by this law.
men. Yeah. Also, interestingly, the Supreme Court also recently had judgment. So they were explaining that it should be looked at from the perspective of a person, and not really whether this is a woman going through this problem or a man going through the problem. Which would, yes, it would require a very unbiased, clean lens to do that. So it's not easy, but that's what they were recently discussing. They have, obviously it's not fully put into practice yet. Like she was saying, that you need to have um, cells, or you need to have symbols. You're not taking away anything from anybody. But I think it's a good starting place for sure, where you look at the person. You don't look at what gender they are. You see that this person is having an issue, has faced something not good, versus this person who has probably done it. Or
हाँ, क्योंकि अभी इस टाइम पर बहुत सारे मर्डर केसेस भी हो रहे हैं। एनसीआरबी की एक रिपोर्ट थी जिसमें उन्होंने बताया कि 2014 से लेकर 2021 तक मीन्स मेंस का डेथ का रेट बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गया, और उनका मेजर इश्यूज़ था उनकी फैमिली प्रॉब्लम्स, उनके मेंटल इश्यूज़, उनका लोनलीनेस। मीन्स जितना भी वो फेस कर रहा है अपनी मैरिज में वो बता नहीं पाते, उनको एक्सपेक्ट किया जाता है ये तो टफ है, अगर कुछ भी गलत हुआ है तो वो वेमेन के साथ गलत हुआ है, मेन के साथ नहीं। और मेन खुलकर बात भी नहीं कर पाते कि वो अपनी बात बताएं कि वो उस मतलब कितना इश्यूज फेस कर रहे हैं वो अपनी वर्क मीन्स अपने वर्क लाइफ में भी, अपने फैमिली में भी, और हर जगह का बर्डन उनके ऊपर होता है। फैमिली उन्हें चलानी होती है, फैमिली को रन करना मीन्स सारी चीज़ें उनको करना है, रिसोर्सेज जुटाना है, अपने ऑफिस में भी उतना ही उन्हें कंट्रीब्यूट करना है, और वो किसी से बात भी नहीं कर सकते, अपनी फैमिली में भी नहीं कर सकते क्योंकि उन्हें परेशान नहीं करना चाहते। दोस्त आजकल की लाइफ में इतने बचे नहीं हैं कि कॉर्पोरेट लाइफ में वो अपनी जॉब मैनेज करे, अपना फैमिली मैनेज करे, या अपने फ्रेंड्स से कोई बात करे इस बारे में। तो वो अकेलेपन की वजह से उनका स्ट्रेस इतना बढ़ता है कि वो डेथ तक पहुंच जाता है, फैमिली प्रेशर उनके ऊपर बहुत ज़्यादा हो जाता है, तो डेथ रेशियो भी बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ रहे हैं इस टाइम।
so now, since you have brought that up, the suicide rates in among Indian men is actually very high. We were just saying that there was a number, as many as I think 70% of the suicides in India are men, and the rest are remaining are women. So the difference is significantly a lot. So does that indicate mental health in men, and issues for mental health in men, and a societal expectation of them that is probably being ignored?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I had mentioned this before also, and even Jyoti said that how men are just expected not to say what they're going through, or they have this internalized stigma also that, oh, we're not supposed to talk about what is happening to us, what we're feeling, because we're supposed to be the strong gender, or if they have a family, then, oh, I'm supposed to take care of my family, so I cannot be weak, or I cannot be going through this. And I think when you internalize it, it must be affecting you. Another thing, which when you were saying, I was thinking about it, that a lot of in India, a lot of our society still lives under poverty. A lot of our society is still comes from marginalized communities, and men are a part of that. So it's not just gender that affects you when you're in a society. Other factors like your family background, where you come from, how are you disadvantaged otherwise. So that factor remains. I mean, we've seen so many farmers in our country who also have committed suicide. Most of them are men, and I think those factors also contribute to suicide rate amongst men. The fact that you're not just a man, but you're also facing all these other disadvantages that are there in our country.
That's true. So, do we as a society then actually believe that men too can be victims of bias and neglect and harassment and abuse? Do we have that? Do we accept that as a society?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
definitely. There are, I mean, maybe lesser, maybe the number of the victims of such crimes men maybe at a lesser number.
मोस्ट ऑफ द केसेस में मेंस जा ही नहीं पाते.
हाँ.
अगर वो पुलिस स्टेशन की बात करें तो वहाँ नहीं जा पाते क्योंकि उनके लिए प्रूव करना बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है कि वो प्रूव कैसे करें. सबसे पहले अगर कोई मैन जाता है तो विमेन को ऊपर रखा जाता है तो उसके लिए प्रूव करना बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है कि वो विक्टिम है. इसलिए
Yeah, matlab, in so many, I don't think it happens now, but because there's more information. But earlier, I've seen plenty movies also where a wife is hitting her husband and they've made it a joke.
Yeah.
It's like a funny scene in a movie when the guy is getting beat up by a woman. It's like, oh my god, how funny! But it's not. It's not funny at all.
Yeah.
But so that bias is
Correct. I mean, there are so many instances where men are sexualized, whether in cinema or whether in ads, and we don't look at that as a problem. Whereas, if you think about it, if this was the other way around, it would be seen as very problematic. And I can recount a lot of such instances where the same comment is being made to a man, but that's not seen as inappropriate. Whereas, if it were the other way around, we would have, as a society, said that's not okay. And I think those small things also are an issue. Why are we not able to put the same things towards the other gender? Um, yeah.
So, India has a national commission for women, but no official body for men. You also mentioned that we don't have cells for, in particular, where they can go and ask for help. So, why do you think that men's issues have never been institutionalized in the same way? Does it come from the same bias?
she always said that मेन से हमेशा एक्सपेक्ट किया जाता है ना कि वो टफ है, वो स्ट्रांग है, उनको ही सब आगे चलाना है, तो जरूरत ही नहीं समझी गई.
Yeah, I mean,
अगर जगह ही नहीं है बात करने के लिए,
हाँ.
तो फिर कैसे करेंगे?
वही किससे बात करेंगे, कहाँ जाएंगे, उनके उनके लिए कोई लॉज ही नहीं है, क्या वो बात करेंगे जाके, प्रूव कैसे करेंगे.
I think, I mean, yes, historically, women's commissions were made or laws were made in favor of them because, yes, we were at a place where that was a larger problem, I think, in the society, where women needed to be protected or they needed to come to a position where they're in equality with men. However, I think in that what happened was there was no scope or no room of a conversation of, okay, we're doing this for women. What happens to the other gender, or how do we go about that? And I think as a society, we're so, I think, traditional in that sense where we say, okay, this is for men, this is for women. And if we had had a gender neutral approach from the beginning, I think things would have been very different today, is what I think.
Yeah, but I think that also comes with what is going on and what time you are in.
Yeah, correct.
Like we were discussing before earlier, there was a need for women reforms because there probably wasn't enough. So I think that also comes from what's going on around you. So I'm guessing that's why. But again, that could also be coming from a place of bias. I mean, now that we're discussing it, could also be coming from there where I feel that for a woman it should be this way. But I guess in that sense that we do ignore what's going on the other side. So, yeah. Okay, and finally, if not now, when is the biggest question like we were just discussing? This is all happening around us. It's been happening for a while. It's not like men are now facing problems and it's coming on, but we're thankfully having this discussion and people are talking about how it should be equal. And where equality doesn't mean that one person is doing or one gender is doing better than the other. It's that we are seeing people based on specific like their where they come from, what they do, what their skills are. We're seeing them based on that. So how long can India continue to ignore men's issues under the assumption that they don't need protection? Like you were saying, we have this thing in our mind, but can we continue like that? Does it make sense? And how long do you think this kind of thing? Okay, so I think then the real thing should be not whether we should act or not, but it should be how we will act on particular things. So, okay, fair enough. Before we stop this conversation, is there something you would like to say to the men in your life and around, and yeah, to wish them also a happy. Yes. Okay. So, at the heart of it, gender justice isn't a competition. It's not a competition of women and men. It's a conversation. Yeah. And it's not about taking away protection from one gender, but it is ensuring that there is fairness amongst everybody. Although it's easier said than done, but that is the right way of taking this forward. And I think the most practical way, because you're looking at how a person is rather than what their gender is. Because equality can't be selective, and empathy shouldn't have expectations. As we mark International Men's Day, it's time to acknowledge that men too need space, they need a place to speak, they need time to heal, they need to be heard. And from legal reform to mental health awareness, the path to true equality lies in inclusion and not division. Uh, so happy Men's Day to everybody. And let's hope that when we stand for fairness, we stand together and we stand uh, regardless of what gender we belong.